Hello and welcome to Frames Team, and today let's discuss shooting log with Nikon cameras. So there are some peculiarities about Nlog and how it works. I am going to tell you how I have figured it out, and to me it looks like it really works. So I'm going to tell you a few things before I get into discussing the details of the process of how to actually grade Nikon Nlog. And I think you're going to be left with a very solid starting point. Now, let me begin with the first thing. What I'm going to talk about in this video, there are 7 points I'll say here. First is that I will tell you how to expose Nlog correctly. Okay. Then I'll also tell you how not to expose Nlog, because there are some reasons why you may end up exposing Nlog incorrectly. Third, the software I use is Vinci, and it's a node-based free software. Of course, there's a paid version of it, which is very powerful, but the free software is good enough. I've been using that for the last 3 years and I'm quite happy. You can just go ahead and download and start using that software. Also, I'll show you some test footage and the node tree. I'll tell you how to build the node tree out. I'll ensure that I go slow. I go step by step, start with simplicity, and then increase the level of complication so that you start getting best results. So I'll go step by step there. I'll also show you 3 ways to prepare the file. 2 are LUT based and 1 where you don't have to use a LUT. Prepare the file, grade it, and then finally edit it. So fundamentally it's preparing the file, ensuring the colors are nice, and grading it correctly and nicely, and you should be able to be happy with the final output. The 7th point is that the steps will involve translating the Nlog input file into a native file where DaVinci works best, a native color space, a native color gamut, a gamma space where DaVinci works best. That will also involve taking the Nlog data into the right kind of color space to edit before we start applying LUTs or creative looks. But before I begin, the last very critical point is that how should you look at me? Should you look at me as an expert? No, I'm not an expert. I am someone who is experienced. I've been doing this for using DaVinci for almost like 3 years. I've been using Nlog for about, I think, 5-6 months. And I'm self-taught, but I have gone through many cycles of failures. Really, multiple cycles of failures. So consider me a mid-level guy, not an advanced mid-level guy, not an initial stage mid-level guy. Look at me as a 50% mid-level guy at DaVinci and understanding log and these things. Of course, with time, I'm going to aggressively learn stuff more. I'm going to share things with you more, because I think most of us are new to Nlog and using the color science out of Nikon cameras, especially when it comes to video. I'm going to first show you a few files. I have a few clips shot in different situations. I have like sunset situations where the camera is directly looking at the sunset, and you have got people with different skin tones, and at the same time you see a lots of colors. Like it's India, so you see a lot of colors. You see how color translations happen. You will see how specific colors I had to kind of bring them down because they are coming out to be too aggressive because of how Nlog is designed. So I'll tell you those little small nuances as you go through different clips. And as you can see, I have this clip here. Then you have something like this. You have like multiple people here, right? Like 4 different people with very different skin tones. Then you come here. These are a couple of Asian girls here, and a very highly exposed, almost overexposed board on the left. That says, I think it says 50% off. Right, and then you have me walking. This is a very slightly overexposed file here. We look through that as well. So I have a bunch of different types of files. So let's start with figuring out what the node tree is and how to use it. So I'd like to start explaining at least what the node is, what node tree is. This is the node tree. As you can see, these are switched on. You just have to click on where it says curve. Wheels. I click on these and these get switched on. Right now, what you have to do essentially, you basically go to the first one, don't touch it, then double click, right click, and then add a node. Add a serial node. What you do is essentially you almost like keep adding layers And each layer, the second layer, takes the data from the first layer, and you can add some effect to the second layer, right? So it's a very non-destructive way of working with the file. And you can switch on and off all of these layers. You can adjust these layers, and they work beautifully together, right? So you don't have to, if you want to reset a player, you can just switch it off. So you add a node that talks about curve, as in you have the the S curve. You do some changes there, okay? So for that node, you only change the curve. Don't touch anything else. Go to the wheels where you kind of change exposures. You change a highlight or shadows or gain or lift, meaning the shadow areas, dark areas. Then when you want to change temperature, for example, go to the temperature node. I mean, you have to add these nodes and just rename them. So all you do here is keep adding serial nodes. The few nodes that you should add is you should add a curve node, a wheels node, a temperature node, a color node, and you can separate color and saturation node. Look, temperature, color, saturation, all of them talk about the color output, but I have divided them because it's just simpler. I fix my temperature, I fix my white balance, meaning temperature is white balance, and tint, and then I move to color. I can saturate, oversaturate, not saturate enough. I can bring it down to black and white. I can push colors towards magenta or towards green or towards yellow, those choices. You can also go to saturation and increase saturation in the saturation node. In the color node, you can also change colors. For example, you want the red to be slightly different. You can do those things. And finally, like I add this node called fine tune, because after doing all of that, if I want like some specific fine tunes, like last minute changes, I keep a node like that, right? Now, all these nodes are right now switched off, and they're switched off because of one reason, because I want to show you how the file looks when it first brought in to the computer. The first thing is that you have added these nodes, right? And then you have to start renaming them. The first node that you add, double click or right click and change the node label to CST in. What is CST? It's called color space transformation, meaning essentially you take the Nikon log file and you hand it over to Vinci Resolve and ask Vinci to know that this is Nikon Nlog, and this uses certain kind of color space and there's a certain language to that file, and you ask Vinci to interpret it correctly. Vinci will then interpret it, and then you ask Vinci to transform or translate that language, the Nikon language, into Vinci language, where Vinci works the best. Because now you want to work within the Vinci environment, in the environment native to the software. So once you have done that, then you go through all these changes. Then you add those additional extra nodes like curves, wheels, temperature or white balance, color, saturation, and finally fine tune. After you've done all that, you do CST out, as in you have now transformed the file, you have done changes to it within the Vinci's native environment. Once you have done that, you want to now get the file ready for you to apply a LUT or a lookup table where you have different color and exposure information. So it can be a base LUT where you do base adjustments to the log file, or it can be a creative look LUT, like you have Eterna or Afga. You have different creative looks, right? You have film looks, film simulations. Those things are available from many sites. You can just buy them from any third-party vendors. You can download those creative looks, look LUTs, and apply them. This is the fundamental structure. I will tell you how you should first translate the Nikon Nlog into the kind of file that Vinci understands very well, and therefore will take all the data, interpret all the data properly and not lose any information. And that's done in the CST in or color space transformation in node. How do you do this? Basically, you click on CST, you click on this node, and then change the node label to CST in, and then go to effects here, okay? Go to effects. You have this search button here. Click on that, search for color, and you'll find here color space transformation. You take it and drag it and drop it on this node. That's what you have to do. Now, I have already done that. And this is what you will get. You can see here, it says input color space. The input color space for Nikon Nlog is actually Rec 2020. So you click on the drop down and choose Rec 2020, right? Once you've done that, then you have to feed in the input gamma. Know that input gamma means some sort of log. You choose Nlog. That's your input. It's an Nlog file which recorded all its color information in the Rec 2020 color space. Now, at this stage, you'll transform it. You'll translate that into the Da Vinci language. What is there for the output color space? It's Da Vinci's own color space, which is Da Vinci wide gamut. It's a wide gamut, which means that it has a lot of colors and can take in a lot of colors and then treat them correctly, right? It's not going to feel constrained. And then you have the output gamma. It's again Da Vinci's own output gamma is actually Da Vinci intermediate. I say gamma, you probably say gamma, or something like that, right? So once you've done that, you've fundamentally transformed the file in a language that Da Vinci understands well. But you're not done here, right? You're not done because you have to also go out of CST. Okay, let me switch this in. The moment I do this, you see there are some changes that happen to the file, right? Da Vinci understands it, interprets it in a certain way. If you go to CST out, I switched it on, I switch it off. Let's say if you go to CST out, here you're taking the Da Vinci file. Essentially, you translated the Nikon file into Da Vinci file and worked on it. Then you want to transform that Da Vinci file again into a kind of file on which LUT application or lookup table application is easy. Okay, what do you do to do that? You say that the input color space was Da Vinci's own wide gamut, and you say that the input gamut was Da Vinci's intermediate input gamut, because that's what you set it to be in CST in. The output's color space, it was recorded in Rec 2020. It's a decent, color space. Use that. So say it's Rec 2020, and then it's a Cineon film log. Now, Cineon film log is a well-known film log available on Da Vinci, on which you can apply a wide range of LUTs. And if you change that to Nikon log, for example, Nlog, for example, a lot of LUTs available in the market may not know how to actually deal with an Nlog because it's new, it's not standard. So you just stick to Cineon film log, right? The moment you use Nikon's LUT here now, things will change. Thus far, I think you have understood. Just replay the video if you haven't understood anything. Now, switch on the CST out. You see, this is how it's going to look. Now we'll go inside and keep changing the curves, the wheels, the temperature, color, saturation, and finally fine tune it before we go on to apply a LUT. Now that you have had some time to understand how to translate the Nikon log into a file that Da Vinci understands, and then to make the file ready to apply LUTs, let me take you through the kind of adjustments I have done to these clips. So let's start with, now what you have done is you have again double clicked on this particular node and you have gone to add node and added a serial node, which you have now renamed to curve. And so the curve adjustments in this are pretty simple. I've just raised the shadow here and then just try to add a bit of contrast here and then just push the midtones and the highlights a little bit here and there. And this sort of gave me I think a decent starting point, and from there I'll just go to the wheels and see how to make changes there. So I'll just switch on the wheels. You will see that now you will get a more contrasty image. So for wheels, you have to come here. Here's the curves. So when you are working on the curves node, you come here and do your adjustments here. When you want to work on the wheels, come to the color wheels, and you can actually change highlights, you can change shadows, you can do color boosting, you can change saturation, hue, all of those things. Remember that you can come to each of these nodes and keep making adjustments later on as well. After that, I've added the temperature or white balance node. So I'll switch that on. So this is here. You can see the temperature. You can see the highlights, shadows are changed here. I move to the next node. This is where I've only made changes to the temperature and to tint. I have not touched any of these other controls. So next is where I have changed the color a little bit. So I'll switch that on. You see how things are changing one by one, right? You can see how things are changing. So I switch this on. You get a look, and then more contrast. Change the white balance. Fix the color a little bit according to my taste. So what I've done is I've just increased color boost and reduced saturation to get the kind of image and look that I wanted. And this is something that I'm happy with. Then I go to saturation. I actually did some color changes under the saturation tab. I made some tweaks to the red color and to the blue to purple color channel areas. I felt as if the reds were too aggressive, so I brought them down a little bit. And also I needed to tweak the greens a little bit. I've seen that the red and greens can at times jump out too strongly in some situations when you're editing Nlog. So I'm a bit conscious about it. So I've just done this as standard, and I'm going to copy and paste this edit for most of my stuff going forward. And of course, whenever I need to do a little bit of fine tune, I add another node here, and I add another node, serial node here, and then I do fine tune. Right? I haven't done much fine tune here, not right now, but in future when I need to, I can do that. Now here you have the CST out node, and you're readying the file right now for LUT application. So you have to ensure that the output gamma is actually seen on film log. Just press C after clicking on the drop down menu here, and you're going to get this where is it? Yeah, Cineon film log, right? You just click on that and maintain that, and of course go back to Rec 709 color space from the Vinci wide gamut, because now we are making the file ready for final output. So you've done this. You're going to apply the LUT now. Now, when you're about to apply the LUT, you have to remember one thing. The Nikon LUT actually really pulls exposure upwards, meaning it somehow expects you to not expose very well. It doesn't expect it kind of expects you to underexpose, and then the LUT is designed in such a way that it really pulls the exposure and luminance values upwards. So the moment you use any of the Nikon LUTs, let me show you. Let's go to this one. See how bright this becomes, okay? Now if I go to another scene where the scene is quite well exposed, see what happens to this. It's almost blown out. All right, you can see this here. And this is the problem with the Nikon LUTs. The Z9 version 1 LUT is a little less aggressive, but it's aggressive enough in most situations. And the version 2, which came out with the launch of the Z8, actually, the Z9 LUT version 2, it's actually more aggressive. So that's what you have to remember. And this is the whole point of learning to expose Nikon Nlog correctly. If you use the view assist on your camera, the image that you're going to see by following the view assist is going to look perfectly fine on the back of your screen. But what you're not going to see on the back of your screen is how noisy and patchy the shadow areas become when you actually bring it to your computer and start editing, applying the Nikon LUTs. Remember, the Nikon LUT is great in a more controlled lighting situation where you don't have that much dynamic range. But when you're shooting outside, you mostly have uncontrolled situations, and there you often get a lot of dynamic range. The shadow areas are really dark. The bright areas are really bright. So there you need to have all the information from the shadow areas, from the dark areas, from the black shirts and black hair and all that. And also need to preserve the detail in the highlight areas. Now the Nikon LUT kind of pushes you to underexpose, because if you use the Nikon LUT inside the camera by switching on the view assist, you will see that you will not get a blown out image when you're not exposing even to the middle of the waveforms. First of all, what you need to do is go inside the menu and switch on the waveform and just trust the waveform. Forget using the view assist. Yes, the view assist is supposed to give you a pleasant looking image and supposed to make you give you an image while shooting with the camera that looks like the final output. But I think it's going to deceive you, and it's going to end up not giving you the best that Nlog can actually give you, because the view assist is perfect when you are sort of underexposing. But the moment you're exposing properly without sacrificing the highlights, you will see that the view assist shows a blown out image. So when you are exposed, when you're influenced by the view assist, you actually are going to start underexposing. You're going to, crank the ND filter and max out the ND filter and just darken the image overall and not give the sensor enough information. And that's the risk. I have done that mistake, and let me tell you, I'll probably play some clips, and let me tell you, it does not look pretty. It does not look pretty, and you will end up hating your Nlog, and you'll think probably your Sony or Fuji camera is better. No, it's not. I find that the Nikon cameras, the Z8, Z9 and Zf Nlog is going to give you tremendous latitude with great color accuracy, and you can do a lot with these files, which means that you don't have to fix colors so much. And when you don't have to fix colors so much, you're working less and you're not sacrificing that dynamic range while fixing just colors. So you are manipulating you have to manipulate the files less, because you don't have to keep tweaking the white balance and the colors. So to simplify it, what I'm asking you to do is switch on the waveform, look at the waveform, ensure that the brightest area, just scope the area, look at the area. Whenever you see the brightest area, focus there and ensure that your brightest area is between the topmost line and the box. It's within that area. It should not go beyond the border of the waveform box, but it should not also go below the first bar that you see. It should be within that area. And when your brightest part of the image is actually within that area, and your lowest part is not going below the lowest bar, you have a decently exposed Nlog footage. That you'll only be able to ensure when you switch off view assist, because view assist is going to give you an image that looks completely washed out and overexposed. It's not the true representation of what the log file is actually doing. The log file is not overexposed. The log file is retaining all the information, and by trusting the waveform, you're actually keeping all the color and light information in the file. Remember that is a super trick when it comes to using Nlog, and I probably should have added it somewhere in the first part of the conversation. Now at this point, I don't remember whether I've spoken about that, but in any case, if you're here, thank you for being here. Subscribe to the channel, and you just got rewarded for sticking to the conversation till the midpoint of this video. So I'll go back to the first clip. Okay, this is the first clip, and you see that the best LUT is actually switched off. Now what have I done here is that after CST out, I've added a serial node. Of course, I've added a serial node, and that is this node, but I'm not using that node. After that, I have gone back to CST out one more time, double clicked on it, and I've added a parallel layer, right? This is the parallel layer. Add a parallel node. Once you've added the parallel node, you will see something like this is formed here, right? This is called the layer mixer. And if you now come to the layer mixer here, this is called the layer mixer. Yeah, double click on it, and then right click on it and come to composite mode and add only color. Don't go to normal. Let me show you how it looks if I go to normal. Now this is taking all the color information, all the brightness information, exposure information, and also the color information. I don't want that. I only want the color information from this particular LUT. And what am I using here? I'm actually using the, let's see, I'm using the Nikon Nlog version 1 for Z9. And let me tell you why I'm doing that. Let's go to another clip. Let's go to a clip where things are quite bright. Yeah, this should be okay. If I come here now, let's increase, yeah, the size. If you look at this scene right now, you can see how bright this is. It is so easy to overexpose, so easy to miss the information here because it's quite brightly exposed. All right, so all I'll do is if I now, for example, go back to this one, to the layer mixer, and take all the information from the Nikon Nlut, this is what's going to happen. You're going to miss so much information. And this is the version 1, right? You can see Nikon Nlog LUT version 1. If I use a version 2 here, let me just track this, it's completely washed out. And that's the problem. I don't therefore want to trust Nikon Nlog here. When it comes to exposure, look at this. It's gone. The information is actually gone. Now, to bring that back, I have to go inside the wheels and bring all of it back. It's difficult. I mean, it's really becoming something else, right? If you want all the information back, then you're losing all the shadow values here. It's a very difficult to use image, and I don't want to get into that trap. Okay, so what I want to do is, first of all, in most situations, I would like to use Z9 LUT number 1, and then when I'm using that, I'm going to add a parallel layer, and I'm going to only take the color information. Just that. I'm not going to take the exposure information from the Nikon Nlut. Now, I can do this. I can take the color information for example, from the version 2 LUT. I mean, it's going to give me a look that I probably don't like as much, but then I'm not taking the exposure information from any of this Nikon LUTs. So I'm fine. The point is, you have to be very careful because the Nikon LUTs pull all the values upwards, and because it expects you to sort of underexpose. But when you properly expose, ensuring that you don't have grain in the shadows and the black areas, and the color quite intact, then if you apply the Nikon LUT, you're actually going to see that your image is blown out. And that's what is happening in many situations. So I would actually trust the Z9 version 1 LUT, and that's quite actually nice. Okay, and yes, I'm still losing a bit of information when it comes to the red values, as you can see here, but then you can still bring it down and get all this information here. All right, so it's quite nicely exposed. So that's how we do it. I mean, let's go back to this one. I don't want to actually necessarily go back to that sort of, I'm fine with this image actually, okay, because I see enough information and I want to ensure that, she's quite well exposed, and just a second. She's quite well exposed and she looks like how she actually looked in real life, which she does here. Now, so what I'm taking is only the color information because I've done this adjustment to the layer mixer. I'm only taking the color information from the Nikon LUT. Now, after that, I have actually added a look LUT. Now, look LUT is a creative LUT, and I've downloaded this from Motion VFX website. It's free. It's available to any of you. You can download that, or you can use some other creative LUT if you have access to it. For example, I really liked teal and orange is nice, but probably a bit more extreme. I liked this one, Sedona. I don't remember where I downloaded it from, but it's quite nice. I also like tetrachrome, and I like, which one? I like punch in some situations, not here. I like Renata because that's quite nice. You have subdued greens there with Renata. But yes, I have used the Motion VFX one here and I'm quite happy with it. Okay. Now, what if you don't want to use a Nikon LUT? Of course, you can. You may not use a Nikon LUT. You can go for a third-party LUT which understands this problem and sort of has created a LUT that sort of is suited for Nlog. files and takes care of the file quite nicely. And I have got this base LUT from, I don't know the name of these guys. I forgot the name of these guys, but it's quite cheap. I think $15 or something like that is what I paid. And this is the LUT here. Where is it? Yeah, this is the one, base LUT for Nikon Nlog. So it's designed for it, but again, I'm going to take only color information because I have done my adjustments here. I have fixed white balance, color. I've done fine tuning. I have done exposure changes, added contrast. I've done all of that. So I'm happy with what it has in terms of exposure and contrast and color balance and even temperature right now, white balance right now. Now I want looks to be applied. And for that, I can have a base level correction made by a well done base LUT. So I sort of drag that in. This is a base log. I drag that in. I have this. And then I can apply a look LUT. For example, if I don't apply the look LUT, this is what it's going to look like with a base LUT. Very neutral, and that's what I like. Because when you have a neutral look applied as the first base LUT, and remember here I'm actually using the Nikon LUT as a base LUT. See, if I switch off the look LUT here, you're going to have a very neutral look here, right? This and this is actually not much different. As you can see here, it's not very different, right? And that's what I'm looking for. I want a sort of neutral sort of look with nice treatment to the skin, nice treatment to the rest of the colors, especially the orange, the red, and the greens. And then I want to apply a look LUT. And here in this particular clip, I have actually added motion VFX LUT. And in the next one, I've actually added I've just added enhance because I liked what the base LUT was doing in terms of color. And then I've added enhance. I don't know where I downloaded this LUT called enhance, but you could add something else. For example, you could add a black magic LUT, for example, but it looked too magenta-ish on the skin. This is a bit too yellow, I thought. So, they have, and this is like, again, I don't know, pink Eterna for A7 III. Like I downloaded these phantom LUTs from their website. So I got quite a few LUTs for a Sony A7III and even I think FX6. You've got something like this three strip. I don't know where I have gotten these LUTs from, but they have got very stylized different colors. And I can go on and apply them because I have done the base correction made, and I'm getting a lot of information in the shadows. Let's just play this, for example, with this one. Okay, I don't know what LUT it is, but let's just play this. It's a bit oversaturated, but we can always go back in the saturation node and change that. I'll show you how to do that. But you get a nice image here, right? But I should change saturation in the saturation tab. I can just bring down the saturation, right? And I have a bit more of a neutral image now. Or maybe I should actually reduce color boost as well a little bit. Okay, and this should be good enough, right? And now I kind of like what this looks like. So yeah, I mean, you can always go back to your main nodes where you can go back and keep adjusting different values, right? And get your final look according to the LUTs you're applying later on. So that's the whole game. I mean, I liked enhance, so I'll probably undo this. Now, what if you don't want to use LUTs? Okay, and what do you find using this LUT business is so complicated? You add 2 layers of LUTs and then handle them. Go back to your curve and wheels and temperature and color and keep changing all of them to get it right. There is another way. You don't have to necessarily apply a LUT. Now, let's go back to the first image, right? Here, you can tell the software directly to treat the image in a certain way, okay? You can say that it's a Nikon Nlog file, recognize that, bring it into a color space, the Vinci, and then give it a Rec 709 look. And Apple, if you're using an Apple computer, is going to interpret the color according to the Apple screen and color space and give you a nice looking image. But what you have to do for that is you have to go down on and go to the right side, go to the project settings, go to color management, and it's typically set to DaVinci YRGB. Okay, you have to set it to DaVinci YRGB color managed, and once you have done that, you have to do a couple of more changes. First of all, once you have changed it to YRGB color managed, you will see that this automatic color management box is actually ticked on. Click this off, and here come down to output color space and change that to Apple Rec 709A. This is the correct color output color space for Apple computers. Save it, and then what you have to do essentially is ensure that you go back here, right click on it, and do not do bypass color management. If I do bypass color management, it's going to not take the values that I've given it here and give you a very flat looking image. All right, you have to ensure that you take this off again. But when I'm using this, for example, where I have actually used the LUTs, you know, I'm actually bypassing the color management because I'm taking the log file and I'm manually molding and changing the log file in a way that I like, and I'm finally applying a base LUT and a creative look LUT. But in this case, I'm not doing any of that, right? But I'm still doing all this. I'm still sort of adding I'm transforming the color space, and then what I'm doing is I'm changing the curve, wheels, temperature, color, saturation. I'm doing all of those things. After doing all of that in CST out, I'm no longer actually preparing the file for applying a LUT. So if you go to the effects, you see I'm using Panasonic V gamut here. In this file where I used a log, I actually used Rec 2020 and Cinon film log. I'm not doing that in this case. I'm actually using Panasonic V gamut and Nikon Nlog. Why Nikon Nlog? Because I can go back to Nlog because I'm not preparing the file for LUT application, and Panasonic V gamut is a bit more soothing. It's a bit more neutral. I like that. If you, for example, happen to go back to, let's say, Rec 2020, it looks a bit, I don't know, it looks a bit different. In some situations, you'll see the reds really jump out. Actually, let me show you. Let me go to another clip. Let's go to 200% zoom and look at this. It's written Raymond here. If I go to Rec 2020, for example, look how oversaturated this is. Okay, let's go to Rec 709. Look what happens. This is crazy. The Panasonic V gamut is far more neutral and realistic. This is what it actually looks like in the real world. Okay, and I'm going back to Nlog. I don't have to necessarily go to Cinon film log. It's a bit more washed out look. I don't want that because I'm not going to use a LUT right now. So I go back to Nlog. Once I've done that, you can see I'm not using a base LUT here, no color correction. I'm not using a look LUT here, no color correction. I'm only telling DaVinci that, look, this is an Nlog file. As you can see, if you right click on it, go to input color space, you're going to see the Nikon is clicked on and it says that it's Nlog. We're saying that it's an Nlog file, and if you want to bring it to your color space, interpret Nlog according to your color and tones and color signs. It's going to read Nikon Nlog as Nlog and change all the colors on this wheel. If you click on that and go to color management, you're going to DaVinci YRGB color managed, and you're asking DaVinci to pick the color space that's correct for Apple, so that now Apple can bring it back to its own color space and interpret the colors correctly to be displayed on an Apple computer. And now you're ready to output it. Now let me summarize the entire piece. First of all, expose Nlog correctly. Don't come under the influence of the inbuilt LUT in the view assist. and then start underexposing it. Don't do that. Don't underexpose it. Trust the waveform. Switch that on, see it on the back of the camera. This is how the waveform actually looks like. So trust this waveform and ensure that you keep the highlights within the box but above the top bar. Okay, and once you have done that, highlights meaning the most brightest part of your image, ensure that's within the box but it's not below the first bar. And once you've done that, your Nlog is broadly exposed properly, and the file is now a great file to work with. Now bring the file on the Vinci Resolve, and you can just follow my node structure. And this is a very simple node structure where I transform the Nlog into a kind of file that Da Vinci manages well, and then start doing your basic changes like exposure changes, color changes, temperature changes, white balance changes. After that, prepare the file for LUT application by applying basically the Cineon film log. Now, then apply the LUT of your choice, but only take color information. So for that, you have to add a parallel node and only tell the layer mixer that you're going to take only color from that LUT. Take only color, not exposure values. And after that, you may choose to apply a look LUT or not choose to use a look LUT. And there you have it. This structure fundamentally is going to give you a very nice image without any distortion. Now I'm going to play different clips and you're going to see how they essentially look. And to me, they look really, really nice. And you see different people with different skin tones. There are people who are, white. They're Asians, they're Indians of fair skin Indians, dark skin Indians. You've got, different, extremely overexposed areas. You have areas where it's very colorful and underexposed. You have, monuments that made of red stone. So you see lots of stuff in this video that you're seeing right now, and it gives you a sense of how these three different ways of treating the Nlog files actually results into what kind of result. And as you can see, this looks very convincing, and we are, there are scenes where we are looking straight into the sun, and then, however, at the same time, you have shadow areas in the same shot. So it's highly complex, a lot of dynamic range, but you hardly actually see any, distortion and noise. So that's very promising. At the same time, you see some files where it's really overexposed, and we have probably overexposed it even by looking at the waveform, and that is a mistake, of course. But at the same time, it doesn't look too bad. I mean, the Nikon Nlog is so powerful that it's brought back most of the information. Now you can follow this, and in the later videos, I'm actually going to, bring in a few, LUTs that I'm going to create by actually understanding how Nikon exposes well correctly. I'm going to do that for the Nikon Zf, for the Nikon Z8 and the Z9. And I'm going to probably make those LUTs available in the future videos. And you can make them downloadable for you. So let me know what you think of this video. If you like the video, subscribe and help me grow to at least 6,000 in the next, 50 days. That's an ambition. I'm just breaking the growth of the channel down to smaller milestones. I want to first reach 5,000 subscriber base, and then help me reach 6,000. I put in a lot of effort, and to be honest, I don't earn anything from the YouTube channel, but I put in a lot of effort, and I feel that if you guys are willing to support me, eventually this channel can become viable for me. Of course, you need to see value in the conversation that we have here. At the same time, if you're new here and if you like this conversation, if you like this episode, if this is of value or entertainment to you, subscribe, help me build the channel. I'm going to see you soon with another one.